Welcome back to the King's Report for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. I have an interview now. I'll be talking with Mr. Bob Kier, who is a high school teacher, and he teaches civics and government and philosophy and military history at a local high school. And so we'll be picking his brain for the next segment on various aspects. Especially, I'm intrigued that there is a high school that offers education in military history. And I talked with Bob about this, and he said part of it involves the whole warrior mindset. Well, that sounds like something we've heard about here. So I wanted to ask Bob, first of all, can you tell us about what you teach in terms of military mindset? And I'm especially interested in how this applies to people not necessarily in the military, but to life in general.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being on. And when we study any history course, whether it's an American history or world cultures, Western Civ, or a military history, we study history to make our lives better. People get caught up in focusing on names and dates and timelines and things that happened where dead people did things a long time ago, and they lose interest because it lacks meaning. And I think in my life study, whether it's in Sayak Kali or whether it's in the classroom, is that we do things so that we can live a better life. So we always ask ourselves this question, whether it's in the classroom or on, the range, is, what is the product of our training? So for military history, we don't just study military history to mimic and ape the actions of people in the past. We actually study military history to grow as people. And a big part of that is warrior mindset. And we are warriors in life. We are warriors as husbands. We are warriors as fathers. We are warriors of children, as mothers, as wives. And we build in this mindset that we are constantly preparing for the battles of life. So for my students in classroom, it's going on to college. It's going out into the workforce. And we study military history and we develop a warrior mindset because people, although we have specialized labor, we have to be able to do everything. Robert Heinlein, a very important author of Starship Troopers, he was in the military. He said that a human being should be able to do a myriad of things, right? Cook a tasty meal, change a diaper, operate weaponry, build a home, all kinds of things that we should be able to do. So there comes a mindset that you have, and the warriors are positive people. It's the I can, I do, and you build in a system, a formula in which people have to live a life as a warrior. So it's, if we follow a code, a warrior code, it starts with our thoughts, right? So all education comes from questions and thoughts. So as I teach in class and I teach military history, it's to live a better life as a warrior would live. So, there's a lot to it. And I think that once you get a person into that kind of mode, they start looking at life differently, and that's what I'm really trying to do as an educator, is to get people to look at life differently.
How do you go about getting people into that mode? What specifically do they need to do?
Well, I think one thing that you have to do is you have to make it meaningful, right? So as an educator, there has to be meaning in what we do. So if we're training, let's say on a range, training for, to shoot a pistol or a carbine, we make it meaningful by getting into the why we're doing it. So you find a person's why. And as a motivator, as an educator, I must find a person's why. So once I do that, then I can start working in, this is meaningful. So we all have family, right? So as a warrior, how am I a warrior as a member of my family? Well, I get up every day and I have a code of ethics, a warrior mindset, and I'm at work and I'm providing, right? And then providing for my family provides security, and it's economic security. At home, I'm a father and I am the guardian of my children and my wife. And how do I prepare for that? And so that for me becomes very meaningful. So for my students, we have to make it meaningful. So we'll do some very personal kind of activities where we get people to think, get people to visualize. This is what, when people start to do that, they start to have vision. So it becomes part of their awareness. And that's part of the warrior mindset, is that we must be aware. So
it sounds like there's a lot of problem solving involved in developing the ability to solve problems that come up many times without relying on outside help, if at all possible. Would they say that's true?
Absolutely. I mean, critical thinking, right? So now, we're getting into a lot of the philosophy of this mindset. So we need to have awareness. We need to be critical thinkers. There's a certain level of honesty that's involved, looking at ourselves, and what we need to develop. And it's not always, when we train as warriors, we find out that we have this idea of how we're going to act in our ideals, right? And in the ideal way. But faced with real challenges in real life, we always fall back to our training, right? We always fall to the level of our training. So we have this mindset where some people have this vision of doing great things, but their intentions and their training are not there. So for students in the classroom, that's one thing I have to get them to realize, is that you have this idea of how you're going to act in a situation, but does that match up with your intentions and your level of training?
So does that mean a lot of your students take martial arts training of some form or another?
In actuality, they don't. Some do, some have, but that is another thing. You'll be very surprised that this school that I teach at, public high school, they actually have a self-defense martial arts course where students engage in physical combat. And it's a really interesting program. And that teacher and I work together, as I work on more mindset and he works on more of the physical, fighting aspect of things. But yeah, when you study military history, you're studying martial arts. And as as people with wisdom, that a lot of things, it's very mental. There's a strong mental component to our success in life and then success in action. So another part of this mindset is that from our thoughts, we develop words, and from our words, we develop deeds. Mm-hmm. And from our deeds, we develop character, right? Our actions, and our deeds are our actions, and then character. So in the classroom, I want students to start to make that connection, that their intentions are very important, and how will they develop into their actions. So, and we study that in military history, when we study the success and the failures of people in military combat, we often find out, like as Sun Tzu said, the victory happens before the actual battle. Right? Yes. So
we're going through a situation right now, this pandemic that's been going on for a year. And I would imagine that the warrior mindset, there are a lot of applications that people can do in terms of this pandemic. You talked about awareness. You talked about being able to do things. So how would a person with warrior mindset respond to the current pandemic?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and the problem that we find as warriors is much of our awareness in taking in information is how we process and create our formulas. So our training is formula-based, our actions are formula-based, and all this information that we take in, we put into a formula. The problem is we get so much conflicting information that people are manipulating, that we have to, as warriors, have to wade through a lot of information. One thing about a warrior is that there's a code of ethics, right? That we're loyal to things and we have honor, and we're dealing in a world where those things are not important anymore, and now how do I know if masks work or not? Or how do I know if the vaccine is any good? And I have to collect information as a warrior, and I have to think and solve problems. And I really have to do nowadays, critical thinking is much more important, because you have to wade through all the, I'll just plainly say it, lies, inaccuracies, or manipulations that the media will give us. And then they shut down media outlets. And, It's really interesting. In the country of Taiwan, they will track social media cancellations. They will track where they start to, pull things off of social media. That's what they start to study as the truth. Because anytime China will start to suppress information, they say, well, this information is probably more accurate.
That's true.
Yeah. So, we as warriors have to now wade through a lot of unhonorable people and ideas. We have to actually, manage those. So I think it's really interesting when you live in a warrior society where people are honorable. It's hard to really work in a system where there's no honor in it, and it's manipulation. Like the vaccine. I'll just tell you right now, the vaccine industry is almost a $70 billion industry. Mm-hmm. You know why they fight against things like hydroxychloroquine? Because if they knew that there was just a pill I could take, that would crush their $70 billion vaccine industry. So we as
warriors. Vitamin D is supposed to do a lot of good.
Yeah,
no one's fighting over vitamin D.
In Indonesia, they found out that hospitalized people with COVID, if they had a certain vitamin D level above 30, they did not go on ventilators. They did not go into an ICU unit. But people like Dr. Fauci aren't pushing that. They're pushing vaccine because guess what? Moderna is going to make a ton of money on vaccines. And, President Biden is going to buy more and more vaccines, and Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, they're loving it. But really, as a warrior, I have to know what's best for myself, my family, my community, my neighbor, Now,
you mentioned cancel culture just in passing in terms of Taiwan. And that's another area that I wanted to go into. So I wanted to move over into that area now. And as you said, as warriors, we need to research and get our own information. And it's really difficult because there's so much lies going on, there's so much cancellation going on, things being taken down from the internet, and especially conservatives not being allowed to speak on campus and university campuses and so forth. And of course, this has been going on for many decades, but it has really come to a very extreme level now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's dangerous to the Republic. The Constitution is founded on the idea that we are going to have a marketplace of ideas, and it's okay to cancel ideas all the time. As conservatives, we do it. As liberals, they do it. But now it's become, how do we destroy another person's life by canceling them for an idea that is completely plausible? It's very personal. They cancel Christians all the time, right? And they say almost like any conservative Christian idea is bad for society. If you speak out against things that don't make any sense at all, they call you a racist. And really this goes against this freedom of conscience that is the foundation of our republic, is the fact that we have liberty of thought, freedom of expression. And then in the marketplace, through the idea of debate and discussion, we'll cancel ideas. We cancel them all the time, but for good reason. And that's where we've kind of lost our way. The framers and the founders of the Constitution were very strong. They had a strong understanding of Enlightenment philosophy and reason. And we have lost it. Not we as individuals, but we as a society have lost that idea or that, not idea, but that way of life where things should make sense and we should debate. And I'm going to defeat bad ideas with good ideas. I'm not going to defeat bad ideas with some, way of getting the majority to crush the minority. That just flies in the face of what makes our society great. Why we're so much better than communist China, And communist China tries to compete with the United States by opening some things up economically, right? But still, they're always going to lose because their authoritarian government will not allow freedom of thought. So, cancel culture is horrible. The positives of cancel culture is there'll be a growth of things. So if we go back to the ancient world, one of the greatest examples of cancel culture is when the Romans tried to cancel Christianity, right? And there's a famous line that the blood of the martyr is the seed of the Christian church.
Tertullian, I believe, yes.
Yes, very good. And, we see that these people that were willing to die for what they believe in was a very strong motivator and a growth factor for Christianity. And we have to be thankful for those people that said, hey, I'm not going to give up what I believe in, even facing death.
So you expect something similar to happen in American society over the next years?
Well, I see it all the time where people are attacked and they're crushed economically. And the scary thing is that the government promotes this. The government is basically using their thugs, right? I equate it to, and I hate everybody that goes to Hitler, but Hitler used organizations that were not necessarily governmental to force certain ways or beliefs in society, right? So we see this with BLM, we see this with Antifa, that the government allows them to act to push an agenda. And then we start to see social media supporting that and pushing that same agenda. And then we see this is all part of cancel culture. And I hate to tell you this, and you and I are in the same boat, but white male Christians are in serious trouble in this nation because we seem to be doing everything wrong according to cancel culture, right?
Unless we're homosexual, yes.
No, even those that group,
really?
The white male homosexuals they're getting canceled. Even in the class the other day, I described the Secretary of Health for Pennsylvania as a man who believes that she's a woman. And I even said she's a woman just to soften it a little bit. And students were offended. And I said, it's an accurate description.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is.
That's
but
right.
You can't be logical. You can't be truthful. They want you to actually lie and call that person a woman. And I told the student, no matter how many chemicals that you pump into that person's body or whatever kind of surgery you want to give, you will not change that person is a biological male.
That's right.
But, so we have a hard time in this society, like just thinking and being honest and reasonable, and it's frustrating at times because I see young people falling into it all the time. They're afraid to be canceled,
Yes. Yes, and I hope that people will stand up as the early Christians did that you mentioned. I wanted to pick your brain as a constitutional scholar on a couple of things that are going on right now. First, of course, is the Senate trial of a former President Trump, whom I still refer to as President Trump. And apparently, in unofficial settings, it's okay to refer to a former president as president. And so I've decided I'm unofficial, so I still call him President Trump. So President Trump's Senate trial next week. Is this, in your opinion, as a constitutional scholar, constitutional?
As I study the words of the Constitution, and I'm a strict constructionist, so I look at the words of the Constitution, and I think those words have meaning. Yes, there's room for interpretation, but what the political left is doing right now, in my mind, is completely unconstitutional. And it's interesting that outside of the words of the Constitution, we see that the sitting Supreme Court Chief Justice won't sit in on the hearing, which he clearly knows that this is not a constitutional action. So Congress right now, and the powers of Congress, the cancel culture political left of Congress, is trying to cancel the opportunity for a citizen to run again. And it is completely unconstitutional. When you read the Federalist Papers and when you read the notes from the Constitutional Convention, James Madison took very good notes. They talked about, should we have a president that sits for life, like a Supreme Court justice would, in good behavior? And they talked about how many years should a president serve and terms. And they didn't come up with term limits, but they talked extensively about impeachment. And it was to remove a person from office that was breaking the law, acting, inappropriately at the level of a felony or a misdemeanor, or taking bribes or so forth and so on. So, it was obviously to remove someone from office. What they've done now is they're trying to keep a person from running for president. Even if for some reason, they can get 17 senators from the other party to agree, there's no way that the Supreme Court should allow this to go through. There's
Right.
no way the Supreme Court should say this was a constitutional action by Congress. They should strike it down. And what worries me, though, is where's the Supreme Court been? Where have they been? And we see that they want to sit on the sidelines time and time again. I'm a football fan. I played football for a long time. And if you ever see a football game where the two teams are getting very contentious to the point where they're starting to punch and kick and bite and so forth, you always hear the announcer say, man, these referees better get in there before this game gets out of control. Well, where are our referees?
Right.
Where is the Supreme Court saying, stop what you're doing? Now, I don't think public statements should be made by the Supreme Court. So they shouldn't try to influence before. But I think the sign of Chief Justice John Roberts not sitting in on this trial is a clear message from the court that this is an unconstitutional action. And anyone who can read the Constitution and is somewhat reasonable, they can see the words to remove a person from office. I mean, that is the point of it. And President Trump no longer sits in office. So the people have already removed President Trump, supposedly, right? So now it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. The last impeachment trial, they took money from Social Security to pay for that trial, millions of dollars. And once again, not helping the people at all. But the media doesn't present that information that $3.2 million was taken from Social Security to have a trial over nothing.
That was the last impeachment. Yeah.
So, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Ocasio-Cortez, these people have lost all sense of what is right and wrong and what is reasonable and logical. It doesn't even exist with them. So it's completely.
Pelosi says they're trying to protect the Constitution, but the opposite is the actual reality.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
I'm concerned not only for President Trump, but also what kind of precedent this is going to set for the future.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be weaponized the way they're weaponizing it against the citizen, what they're doing. And they're saying we're protecting the Constitution. In no way is Donald Trump threatening the Constitution. They're clearly trying to protect their party. They're trying to protect and set up a way to win the next election. And the framers of the Constitution would be physically ill looking at Congress acting the way they're acting now. They would not.
There'd be more than one or two things that they would make them physically ill. I heard perhaps partly in just maybe I hope one Republican say, well, next time we're in the majority, let's impeach Obama for Benghazi.
Yeah, and that would be ridiculous. And I as a person who studies the Constitution, I'm against these really radical changes to process that have been around for a long time. I think precedent's important. So keeping the filibuster, I think, is extremely important, even if it hampers my party, right, or my desire to get things done. I think it's a very important check because my desires need to be checked, right? I'm not always on the right path. I'm not always desiring the right thing. I need someone to pump the brakes for me sometimes and say, hold on a second. So checks and balances is extremely important. And anyone who wants to eliminate a check is a serious danger to the republic, in my mind.
One last topic I wanted to cover. I'm sure many people, when they hear that you're a teacher in a high school, are wondering, well, how's that going in this pandemic environment? At your school, are you teaching in person or online, or how's that going?
I wish it was going better. I like our district in the fact that we do have hybrid classes. They are encouraging students to come back into the school, and they've taken measures to improve the school environment, changing air filtration systems and spending that money. And we're practicing all the social distancing and the masking. But we have this media that constantly presents these stories about teachers that don't want students back in the classroom. I can tell you online learning is not effective. You have to have that personal contact. You need to have that conversation that is not like this. I mean, this is okay, but you can't really educate this way. Face to face, in person, having a discussion is the way to go. So our district is working really hard to try to bring students back, which I appreciate as a teacher. But the media really hurts us a lot.
Yeah, in Chicago, there's a big controversy now between the Chicago School District and the Chicago Teachers Union. School district officials want these students back in the class, and the mayor, actually, this is Monday morning, Chicago time, 8:30. She's saying that if students don't come back to class today, or if the teachers don't come back and teach students in person today, Monday, we're going to take action. This is going to be an illegal strike, and the teachers union is saying, no, we're not going to go. They are saying, the reason they're justifying it by saying, well, we don't want to jeopardize our families. We don't want to get the virus from our students and then take it home to our families. Is there that kind of concern among your colleagues at your high school?
Yeah, I think some colleagues are worrisome of that, and they are concerned with that. If I was the mayor of Chicago, I would be much like Ronald Reagan, and I would fire every one of those people that did not come back, just like he did with the air traffic controllers. Right. And there's going to be a legal battle, and I am a union teacher. I'm not really that pro-union as, but I'm a teacher first, and my family knows that as a warrior, right, I look at and mitigate the risks and face danger. We face more danger driving to work every day than we do with this pandemic, so I really look at the teachers of Chicago and I say, you're not helping me, you're not helping the kids, but I'm not important. They're not important. The students are the most important people in the organization. Everyone should be sacrificing for the child. And for them to say, well, I'm worried about my family. Well, then as a warrior, fix that problem. How would you fix that problem? And by the way, I live in a house with 10 people. Oldest person, 78, youngest person is 4. My wife's an ICU nurse. She has worked tirelessly with COVID patients. She has seen so much death, and we've all had COVID in our house and my father at 78, my mother at 76, and we've managed it, and it's something you manage. And those people in Chicago really need warrior mindset. They're failing the people that are most important to them, and they don't realize who's important to them. So as warriors, we do this. We sit down and we will list out what our mission is, what is important to us, and we make public oaths. We will tell people that we care and how we will fight. So they need some warrior mindset out in Chicago is what they need. They need a lot of stuff out there.
They need a lot of stuff. New mayor would help probably, or a different mayor.
Yeah.
But yes, Chicago seems to come into the news a lot and very rarely in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, I really hate that when they're going to make us live according to the rules of Chicago when we live out here in Newfoundland and Greentown and Greeley or whatever. I really don't like that, because they have a lot of their own problems out there.
We're going to be living California rules pretty soon, I think.
Oh, please don't say it. Don't say it.
I think that's what the people in the White House have in mind, especially the vice president. But of course, the governor of California is paying a price for the California rules right now. He looks like he's on the verge of having to face a recall vote there. That seems to be coming to pass. Yeah. All right. Well, Bob, thank you very much for your time this morning. And stay safe, especially we're having a snowstorm Monday, Tuesday, into Wednesday. And I'm guessing your high school is on a snow day today.
Yeah, we're doing virtual lessons from home. So
I
to jump on with the students and talk to them and hopefully keep them on track.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. Thank you. God bless.
You, Tim. Bye. God bless you. Thanks a lot.